I see the president's position. Hey, if they're going to give us this plane, otherwise taxpayers are going to pay for it. We need a new Air Force One, and they don't have it ready for us. They were supposed to have it ready for us. They don't have it ready for us. If Qatar is willing to give us this plane and it can save us some money, maybe we should do it. Save the people some money.
Far-right MAGA pundit Tomi Lahren showed up on The Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God. They covered a ton of topics during the nearly hour-long chat. You can always check out the full thing over on The Breakfast Club's YouTube channel, but for now, I just want to highlight a few key moments. So let's dive into some clips from this back and forth between Tomi Lahren and Charlamagne the God. I'll be adding my own take along the way. Let's jump into it.
Do you feel like a president should uphold the Constitution?
Oh, absolutely. It's our duty.
Yes. So when you see him on Meet the Press and he's asked that question, President Trump, he's asked that question and he says, I don't know. You can't be happy with that.
Well, to be fair, when he was asked that question, it was regarding illegal immigration and what his administration's abilities are. Now, that's going to end up being decided by the Supreme Court. We don't have those decisions yet. But to say he's just not upholding the Constitution, he's saying, well, the lawyers are going to tell me how far I can go. So I respect him when he says that. He's not saying, nope, I know the answer. He's saying, listen, this is going to play out. Judicially, it's going to play out. Legislatively, it's going to play out. But I'm going to do what I can to protect the sovereignty of our nation and our borders. And we had an invasion in his mind and in my mind, and we have to correct that. And the voters voted largely to correct that. So when he said that about the Constitution, he wasn't saying, I don't know. He was saying, listen, it's going to play out. And I respect that.
There is actual due process language in the Constitution, though.
Yeah. To me, there's a gray area.
Everybody does have the right to due process.
Yeah. To me, there's a gray area there. And it depends on what we're talking about. So the position the president has and my position is this. It's a privilege to be in our country. And there were millions of people who came into our country and they said, I don't want to follow a process to get in, but now I want a different process in order for you to remove me. And what this administration is saying, and what many Americans, including myself, feel is, listen, you need to follow our laws. You did not follow our immigration laws. So there's going to be a different process for you than an American citizen. And if two immigration courts say you're gang affiliated, if you've beaten your wife and you have protective orders filed against you, if you're accused of trafficking people around this country, which is a major issue, human trafficking and sex trafficking, then you no longer have the privilege of being in this country. And by the way, you also came in illegally. So the whole due process conversation, that's where I stack up on that. Now, listen, I don't believe people should just be rounded up with, just because they see you and they say, oh, get out of here. But if you came to this country illegally, you are up for deportation. You came here illegally.
Yes, but the Constitution still says you're allowed due process. Now, I'm not even saying that I disagree with, that stance. I'm just saying you still have to abide by what the Constitution says.
But why did nobody take any issue during the Obama administration when he deported 3 million people without that due process of, yes, you're in here illegally. Yes, the court says you're here illegally, but we're going to deport you because you're in the country illegally. There was no extra due process for those 3 million under Obama, and nobody had an issue with it. So now my question is, why now is there another level of due process besides an immigration court saying you're here illegally, you have a notice to be deported?
I've always asked that question, and it's to my knowledge that the people because Obama deported more people than any president ever, but those people still were deported, via due process. Like they didn't just grab them and say, hey, we're shipping you off to an El Salvador.
No, but an immigration court said, yes, you're up for deportation, but the Obama administration didn't give them this extra due process, or you get a trial, or you get...
But if you go to the courts, that's due process.
Exactly, an immigration court, which that's what President Trump is also doing. It's not just, they've never been in front of an immigration judge.
The guy from Maryland didn't go through due process.
Two courts actually not only said that he was gang affiliated. The local PD said he's gang affiliated. An informant says he's gang affiliated, but
that has nothing to do with due process. All of that could be true.
But two courts already said you're gang affiliated and you're an illegal immigrant. I mean, there's no dispute that he's an illegal immigrant, and there's no dispute that the courts say he's gang affiliated.
But that has nothing to do with his due process. I'm with you, but that has nothing to do with his due process. That just means that he has committed some crimes.
Charlamagne is 100% on point here. Tomi Lahren's argument from a few minutes earlier that because immigrants broke the law by coming into the country illegally, they somehow lose their right to due process doesn't hold up. If someone robs a bank, yes, they've broken the law, but they still get their way in court. And now she's saying, well, the guy's gang affiliated and undocumented, so what? That cancels out due process? That logic doesn't work. If a U.S. citizen robs a bank and commits murder, does that mean they're no longer entitled to a trial? That's not how it works. Tomi Lahren's reasoning doesn't add up at all. Like Charlamagne keeps pointing out, due process is still guaranteed, whether you're here legally or not.
But he's still allowed due process. And I think that's where a lot of Democrats are getting caught up in. They're so focused on defending his character or what he may or may not have done, when we should just be talking about the due process that has allowed people within the Constitution.
So do you want him to go in front of another immigration judge then? I guess that's my question, is that he's been in front of immigration judges. He's in the country illegally and has been for many, many years, right? You not only came to this country illegally, but then since then, you have protective orders against you. Your wife says she's scared of you. Your wife's ex-husband said, hey, I'm worried about my kids because my ex-wife is dating a gang member. And you got caught on body cam footage, allegedly trafficking people across my state of Tennessee. So at some point, it's like, how many more judges need to say this cat needs to leave? And I would also ask this. There are Americans who are accused of being gang members all the time. And I feel that they get less benefit of the doubt than someone who came to this country illegally. And that should infuriate Americans, that there are people sitting in jail right now who I feel probably get less attention, less advocacy, and they're rotting in jail than someone who came to our country illegally and then continued to break our laws and endanger people. So that's my perspective on it. And I get what you're saying about the due process. I understand
that's literally the only conversation. I'm not saying that he shouldn't even, I'm not saying that he should not be deported. I'm just simply saying he should have to go through due process. That's it. I think that, the people like this keep saying, well, he committed this crime, he committed that crime. That has nothing to do with the due process that he's allowed within the Constitution. What do you think about Donald Trump taking the plane? Constitution also says you can't do that either.
That's another gray area. I'm not a lawyer.
Why is that gray?
Well, because here's the deal. I understand, and I'm not fully saying I even support it. I see the president's position. Hey, if they're going to give us this plane, otherwise taxpayers are going to pay for it. We need a new Air Force One, and they don't have it ready for us. They were supposed to have it ready for us. They don't have it ready for us. If Qatar is willing to give us this plane and it can save us some money, maybe we should do it. Save the people some money. Donald Trump doesn't look at things like a typical politician. He looks at it like maybe your average person would say, hey, you're going to give me this and I don't have to pay for it? Okay, I'll take it. And I understand. There are many people
prohibits that.
There are many people on my side of the aisle who also agree with you. Like, hey, what are they getting in return? And I need to know that as well. So I'm not saying that I'm just like, yes, take the plane. I would prefer you didn't, but I understand.
Why would you prefer he didn't, Tommy?
I don't want to be beholden to potentially hostile nations in the Middle East.
And it's unconstitutional.
I understand your point on that. I don't know if it is unconstitutional.
It is. The U.S. Constitution prohibits it. It's textbook unconstitutional. All I want, regardless of party, is a president who upholds the Constitution at all times.
Do you feel like President Joe Biden did that?
No, probably not in all cases. But that's why I said, regardless of party, I want a president who upholds the Constitution at all times. I don't think the Constitution should be flexible.
Yeah. Well, there are some on the left that want the Constitution to be flexible when it comes to the Second Amendment and, other parts of the Constitution. So some people say it's a living document. It changes with the times. Other people say, listen, it's the original intention. And I think there are times where we probably agree on different points and disagree on others. I take your point, though, about the plane. I'm not cheering for it. Like, I'll be honest about that. I'm like, hey, if we can avoid that, let's avoid that. Let's just not even go into the gray area. I would prefer that. But I see the president sees it as, let's save some money for the American people. I think he really does care about that. I really do believe that he sees things like a business, and that's his perspective on it. And I think that he appreciates the gesture. But I don't love it.
It's still unconstitutional, and it could be a national security risk.
I understand that. I don't disagree with you on that point.
The plane's probably bugged. It could be a bomb for all we know. I'm not even joking.
I don't disagree with you on that point. I would need to know more as well.
I honestly don't know how anyone can watch this exchange between Tomi Lahren and Charlamagne the God and not walk away thinking Charlamagne is making completely reasonable points. When it comes to immigration, he's saying, forget who the person is or what their background might be. Just stick to what the Constitution says. And honestly, he's right. Some Democrats might be missing the mark too, focusing too much on individual character rather than simply upholding due process. Meanwhile, Tomi Lahren is over here saying the Constitution is a living document when it suits her, but suddenly it's set in stone when it comes to the Second Amendment. Then she flips again on Trump taking a plane from Qatar. Now that's just interpretation? Come on. Let's flip it. Imagine Joe Biden or Kamala Harris accepted that same plane. You already know Tomi Lahren would be outraged. What really gets me is that the MAGA crowd wants to save a few bucks here, but at the same time, Trump is out there promising a $1 trillion defense budget, the biggest ever. We've hit $800 billion before, but never $1 trillion. And somehow we can't pull from that to buy a new Air Force One? That's wild. Again, Charlamagne nails it when he asks, isn't this a red flag? And even Tomi admits it's not ideal, but if Bernie Sanders were the one getting that plane, Tomi Lahren would be losing her mind. What do you think? Are you siding with Charlamagne the God or Tomi Lahren on this one? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe. I'm Polyscope. Catch you in the next one.